All right, my good people, are you ready to talk about today's latest and greatest in the gaming news sphere? It is time to talk about some PlayStation 5 unit sales, some overall kind of PlayStation, earnings reports, and we got a lot of stuff to get into, man. It's actually a pretty packed news week. The Xbox Ally X got some information on that. A lot of stuff in here to go through, so I hope y'all are ready to dive on in. So yeah, let's start right there with the PlayStation earnings report here. And this is for Q1 / fiscal year 2025 report. PS5 units sold for Q1 is for Q1 for 2025 is at 2.5 million. Lifetime PS5 unit sales is at 80.3 million. Full game software unit sales is at 65.9 million. First party software unit sales is at 6.9 million. Digital download rate is at 83%. PSN monthly active users is around 123 million. So, PS4 is slightly outpacing PS5 at this point. With the PS4 being at 82 million in that same window, but also, gotta keep in mind that there hasn't been a significant price cut at all to the PS5. So to be right there on track with PS4, to this in this time frame of total life on the market and how much each console has sold respectively, with also considering how much more expensive the PS5 is 5 years on the market compared to the PS4, that is really damn impressive. And also you got to keep in mind we got fucking GTA 6 releasing in less than a year, which that alone will probably push, 5-10 million plus PS5s. Like, that will move a lot of PlayStation 5s off shelves. So I do kind of wonder about GTA 6 and the Series S. Like, will it have a similar sort of impact with the Series S being the most affordable way to play GTA 6? I think to some degree, right? Like, you would assume that there's going to be millions upon millions of people upgrading their console, and if they can find the cheapest entry point to go play Grand Theft Auto 6, and it happens to be a $300, I don't even know, maybe even cheaper than that, this discounted machine, and you can play, a decent version of GTA 6 on it. I guess that's the thing. Is it going to be a decent version of GTA 6? But will the average consumer even really care? I'm curious to see what impact, if any impact, GTA 6 has on the Xbox Series S. But, I do assume that people will still mostly choose the PS5 and, probably at that time pick up a cheap copy of like Spider-Man 2 along with GTA 6 and a PS5. I think it would be a good idea even with Ghost of Yotei. I know it won't have been out. It wouldn't have been out for all that long when GTA 6 releases in May. Let's assume it releases in May. I could see it once again getting pushed to fall 2026. But let's say it releases in May. Yotei will have been out for, 6-7 months, something like that. I think drop that damn price down half, $35 around the launch of GTA 6, and just once again trying to make that PlayStation 5 console look as appealing as possible when you know that tens of millions of people are going to be looking to upgrade to find that next console. Are they going to pick a Xbox? Are they going to pick a PS5? Well, give them great incentive to pick a PS5. Here's Yotei for $35. It just came out. One of the best games of the year, a game of the year contender, whatever marketing pitch you want to throw in there. And then have Spider-Man 2 sitting right there for less than 20, something like that. And it kind of becomes a no-brainer where you're like, after I finish up GTA 6, I'm going to want to play some more, heavy hitters that I can only play on this system. So I think that's a compelling kind of potential marketing beat that PlayStation could roll out, because I don't know if they have the marketing rights to GTA 6. I guess that remains to be seen. But if they do, and but you wouldn't even really need to. Like, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, if you just released, a bundle with GTA 6, but you keep it, even imagine some world where you only have like you make it $550, so you essentially save like $20 on GTA 6. Just something smart like that to get people in the door, for people just to flock into your ecosystem. I'm so curious how that's all going to be rolled out, because we haven't seen yet. It's crazy to think about. I think the biggest next gen only game that we've gotten that will really get people into the door, or get people in the door to buy a PS5, Series X, what have you, that's not also available on PC, was probably College Football 25. Like, that's probably the biggest new release of the last few years that got millions and millions of people to upgrade their console. Because it's not playable on PC. So this is going to dwarf that by a magnitude of, I don't know, 20 times, 30 times, whatever College Football 25 sold. So it's going to be fucking wild to see how many PS5s and Series X and S's enter homes next year. And so just sort of going through this data a little bit more, I do want y'all to keep in mind the digital download ratio being, what was that at, 83%. Keep in mind that thousands upon thousands upon thousands of digital-only games release on the PlayStation Store every year. And so when you look at the actual boxed, like the games that, like, look at Sony first-party titles like God of War or Ratchet or Astro. Those typically have like a 60-40 split, 60% digital, 40% physical, but there's still a large outpouring of support for the physical format for those PlayStation first-party titles, and a lot of the single-player, like, premium titles, they still see a lot of physical support. So let's not doom and gloom too much over that percentage. I know it's high, but there's also a lot of other factors that make that number appear as just staggering when you first see it. And let's see, first party sales, being at 6.9 million seems a little bit low, but I guess, you start thinking about it and it's like, well, what, first party content has dropped in this window that they're reporting, and it's like, not really much at all. Death Stranding 2, would Astrobot be in that window? It's not a lot, and even when you start talking about those games, they're not like mega, heavy hitter juggernauts. And yeah, you got like Days Gone, the remaster, but it's a remaster of a game, and Spider-Man is still selling incredibly well, Spider-Man 2, so you throw that in there, but it's not like we have a lot of new releases, new juggernauts. The PlayStation hasn't really been just dropping these first-party bangers at a consistent clip on par with, the PlayStation 4 generation. So, yeah, I don't think that number is great, 6.9 million in first-party sales, but this number is crazy. Operating income profit was up 127% year over year, which is fucking wild, man. They are making so much money off of that console and off of your Fortnites and your Call of Duties and your NBA 2Ks, because when you look at, operating income up 127% and only 6.9 million sales for first party releases, it's like, dude, they're making all their money off of those, those live service games, those 10 live service games that we talked about before, that just do not go away and do not make room for anybody to have time to play anything else, which is a bigger issue that I don't know if there's much of an answer to, unfortunately. 4.6 billion in yearly revenue from PlayStation Plus seems, that seems solid. Like, all of these subscription services are seeing a spike in new players, some solid growth, as people are struggling more and more financially just to go out and buy the necessities, so they end up cutting in terms of making the large purchases. And you're seeing that with Circana data circulating, saying that I think there was like a 20% dip in the 18 to 25-year-old demographic in spending on video games year over year compared to this time last year. So, times are getting harder, and they've been consistently getting harder since really 2020, when the pandemic hit and we just had this crazy inflation boom. And it's times are rough, so subscriptions are looking more and more appealing as people aren't able to go out and drop $70 and potentially $80 on new games. And so that does not surprise me at all. But for a service that is as, if I'm being honest, mediocre as PlayStation Plus, it's been getting better with the premium offering for sure with the retro titles, but no first party day one releases. And if we're being brutally honest, even the third party games that they get really aren't the juggernauts. They're really not going out and trying to get day one third party heavy hitters on par with what Xbox is doing with Game Pass. So it's to see it on par with Game Pass, $4.6 billion to Game Pass's $5 billion, with such a, if I'm being real, just it seems like not the most effort being put into PlayStation Plus, even just not a lot of effort in having people go out and scout what new indie games they could potentially get for that service day one that they could get for a reasonable price. And they really don't do much of that at all. And Game Pass, Xbox, you're constantly being flooded with new indies and interesting titles that you would have never played before if it wasn't for Game Pass. That's not quite as common with PlayStation Plus, at least in my experience. All anecdotal horseshit. But also a really big note here is that Sony is in the process of transitioning Bungie under the PlayStation Studios umbrella, and they discussed how they're removing a lot of Bungie's independence due to their, just kind of poor performance, honestly. And this was obvious, right? Bungie is and has been kind of mercenary minded for many years, hopping from Activision and I guess Xbox to Activision, and to, they've been around the block, right? And they position themselves as something that they might not actually be. And they missed profit margins by 50-60% or some crazy number a couple years ago. And when they missed those profit margins, that was kind of it was just a bad acquisition altogether. They paid so much money for that company, and the return has been next to nothing. Marathon is a game that is in total, I don't see that game coming out and doing well. And we know that's the thing. Bungie, they make really solid gameplay. Their gameplay experiences are incredibly fun. Their first person shooting is incredibly solid. The mechanics are incredibly tight. But there's just so much controversy surrounding that game. And listen, a good game can overcome all of that controversy. At the end of the day, nobody's really going to give a fuck if Marathon comes out and is rock solid. People are going to be like, sure, whatever. You stole some art and it's fucked up, but the game is really damn fun. And that's unfortunate, but hopefully the person that they stole that art from can get very well compensated. But I just don't see Marathon being a smash hit. So yeah, that's kind of the big numbers from this report here. It's so funny to me, hearing people prognosticate about how console gaming is dead, and the PS5 is fucking on track to be the 5th or 6th best-selling console of all time. And but in that same vein, you hear people saying the console gaming is dead, and then you have Sony senior vice president Sadahiko Hayakawa. This quote, he says, "In the gaming business, we are moving away from a hardware-centric business model more to a platform business that expands the community and increases engagement." And it's like, you're doing so well with your console sales and making crazy, crazy money hand over fist, but then you have quotes like that, and it's like, I guess, when you do hear people saying that the console business is stagnating, or that the big players are moving away from the console market and focusing their efforts elsewhere, and it's like, well, shit, when Sony's senior vice president pretty much says that directly, it's like, I guess you got to take that with some validity there. Like, you got to take that as is. There's no way of really spinning this quote. "In the gaming business, we are moving away from a hardware-centric business model more to a platform business that expands the community and increases engagement." Like, I guess you can do some mental gymnastics there, where you want to be like, okay, well, there's still a platform-centric business, so they're still going to prioritize PlayStation. It's like, sure, of course. It's not like they're going to devalue PlayStation overnight, but I do think that Sony looks at PlayStation as like this Apple sort of untouchable force on the market, and I just don't think you're that guy. I don't think you really have that juice. I think people will shift away from a PlayStation console if they can just go buy a PC and get all those games day one. And it's like these types of statements, when they're not backed up by, additional clarification or additional questioning, where it's like, well, what does that mean? Are you looking to move your games like a quicker release cadence for PC? Are you looking to move to other platforms, and you have all the, job listings for third-party development and third-party publishing and this, that, and the other? And it's, yeah, you do start to think about, and I even start to think about myself as like a console. Like, I've never owned a fucking PC other than laptops, but like, I hate PC gaming. I have no interest at all in ever playing games on a PC. But you hear things like this, and you look at Xbox's moves, and they're kind of following in Microsoft's footsteps. I mean, it's the thing where you see a whole lot of people hanging on to the oh, well, it's just going to be live service games that PlayStation puts on Xbox, or they're not going to go day and date on PC. And it's like I remember seeing this same type of conversation regarding Xbox, and the when they were putting games on PC, or when, just like when they were, it's only going to be 4 games with the whole business update thing. It's like, it's just 4 games. And then you had a bunch of people parroting that, and now they look fucking ridiculous. It's like, I don't know. You're not going to catch me parroting the fucking PR speak. You're not going to catch me parroting the any of the shit that these, head honchos over at Sony are saying. Because right now, in my opinion, it does look like they're kind of positioning themselves to get a little bit more in the realm of an Xbox, in the realm of, I don't think it's, I do think, I'm not saying likely, but if we had to look at it on a pie chart by, I don't know, 2035, are we really expecting a world where Sony first party titles aren't day one on PC? Like, I don't know. I kind of think that sometime during that PlayStation 6 generation, I think we're going to get the official announcement of like, yeah, games are coming day one to PC. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, if I don't have to buy an Xbox and I don't have to buy a PlayStation, and I can just go buy a PC that I also need for doing the shit that I'm doing here, it's like, I guess that would probably be a wise move. So maybe I just need to embrace the PC fucking gaming life. And that's just so not appealing to me. But hey, I do. It's funny to me where, you don't want to prioritize your hardware, and you're seeing these results of such incredible profit and year-over-year growth, and it's like, do you really want to relinquish 100% of sales for your first-party titles to go and get 70% when selling it on Steam or wherever people migrate to, and then, also see fewer 30% cuts from the third-party publishers that are releasing games on your platform? But then, you look at it and it's like, okay, well, is the idea, okay, we just want to meet people where they are and where they're going? And if you do see console sales kind of stagnating, but it's like, what does stagnating mean is kind of my thought process, where, okay, say I have been working 20 years at this job, right? But I'm slowly making a little bit more money, but, at around 17 years into the job, I maxed out at $400,000 a year, but I'm living really comfortably off that $400,000 a year. By year 20, if I'm only making $410,000 a year, but I'm super fucking comfortable, happy with my job, making great money every single year, very stable, it's like, sure, I'm stagnating, I guess. Like, I'm not making more money. I'm not having these crazy, pay increases, but at the same time, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing fucking well. So, I don't know. I this infinite growth thing, I just look at it sometimes and I'm like, are y'all not satisfied with good enough? Is anything ever good enough for anybody? So, I'll tell you what's not good enough, but according to Sony, CFO Lin Tao, she says PlayStation's live service strategy is not entirely going smoothly, but pledges that it will carry on and learn from its mistakes. Tao says progress has been made despite somewhat negative news caused by Concord and Marathon. Just somewhat negative news, guys. Listen, let's just forget. Let's sweep under the rug The Last of Us Online and Spider-Man Online and Twisted Metal and Sony London's game and Sony Ben's game and Destruction All-Stars and Foam Stars and Fair Games, and let's sweep under that, let's sweep all of that under the rug, and let's keep in mind that it's just somewhat negative news. It's not the end of the world. We didn't just burn close to $500 million on Concord, a game that was so catastrophic it would have shuttered most fucking publishers. This isn't somewhat negative news. This is a catastrophic fucking initiative that you pursued, and it is blowing up in your face. This is going as bad as it can possibly go. You have one win and like 11 fucking losses. You are the Detroit Lions. I guess the Detroit Lions are good now, but my whole life the Detroit Lions have been like 2-13, 2-14, whatever. That's the kind of record you're looking at here with your live service initiative. And this isn't somewhat negative news. Not entirely going smoothly. Like, what are these quotes, man? And listen, I understand that this isn't the time or place for honesty. Whenever corpos speak, you're not going to get much honesty out of them. But I don't know. That's not like even a convincing sales pitch to me, where I would like to hear something like, yeah, we've taken some big hits, but I think we've learned the right lessons to move forward. And they say that to some degree, but it's like, I don't know, convince people that you've actually, acquired some knowledge and have some specific direction of how you're going to course correct, because you can't take another $500 million fucking loss, $400 million, whatever it may have been. Catastrophic losses. And I mean, we're not even, what did Fair Games cost? Jade Raymond got the fuck out of there before the game ever launched. That thing has been in development for a hot minute as well. You know? So it's like they're in a really bad state with their first party mismanagement. And hopefully that was the Jim Ryan era and we're moving on, because they bought Haven. They bought the studio making Fair Games. They bought the studio that made Concord. This isn't just, oh, we had some games that flopped. We bought studios that made fucking bombs. Fair Games is going to be a bomb if it releases. Days Gone sold 10 plus million copies and you put them on a live service game. You put fucking Bluepoint on a live service God of War game. This isn't somewhat negative news. This is catastrophic. Fix it. You got a new console coming out. But I don't know. Listen, there's a lot of positives here, and I don't want to just overly, sensationalize and pick apart all the negative things that hit my brain. But, like, you got a console coming out in a couple years, and your quote is, in the gaming business, we are moving away from a hardware-centric business model, more to a platform business that expands the community and increases engagement. It's like, I don't know. Just, this doesn't, to me, that's not really ensuring much confidence in the launch of a PS6. Being ready to go with high quality exclusives and being a must-own system. And we haven't quite learned from our live service initiative. It's like, guys, get it to fucking together. But yeah, they're making a lot of money, so kudos to them on that. And apparently PlayStation was also the aggressor in pushing Helldivers 2 onto Xbox. And this comes directly from a Discord message where Arrowhead CEO Shams Georgiani said any praise for making the Helldivers 2 port onto Xbox a reality should go to PlayStation. It was all PlayStation. Send them your thanks. We are all in support, of course, he said. A follow-up question then asked Georgiani if he ever expected Sony to allow for an Xbox version, to which he responded, I think it's one of the coolest things they've done. They're killing it. And it's this, live service games should be everywhere. I've said that forever. I don't think you should lock down your live service games. You want to get that into as large of a player base as humanly possible. But it's once again just going back to everything that we're talking about here. I don't know how you can look at all of this and just be like, yeah, business as usual. Like, things are undeniably fucking changing for PlayStation's business model. And, maybe it is more of a consumer-friendly approach. I think it could be catastrophic for console sales, but we'll see. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Like, if Spider-Man, all right, let's go ahead and get a little risky here. By 2020, before the end of the Switch 2's life cycle, Spider-Man 1 will be playable on the Switch 2. I'm going to go ahead and throw that prediction out there. It's hard to really predict for Xbox because their next Xbox is just going to be a PC. So it's like everything is going to be playable on Xbox at some point. So it's hard to really understand the reality there at all. Like, why not just go ahead and put it on Xbox directly? If they can just go and buy it on Steam through their Xbox. It's yeah, we're in very, very interesting times. No doubt about it. But I do think Spider-Man will be on a Switch 2 device before the end of the Switch 2 console life cycle. Times are undeniably changing. And it's just going to be so hard to you would have to not have your games releasing on PC for them to be exclusive anymore. You know what I mean? With the next Xbox theoretically being a PC and the ROG Ally X and so there is a part of me where I do understand what he's saying. Sony's vice president, saying we kind of do have to move away from this. We're kind of being forced to move away from this. So there are aspects of it where it's like, yeah, I guess I do get it. It's hard for me to sit here and this isn't news I like to hear. I want Xbox games to be only on Xbox. I want PlayStation games to be only on PlayStation. And it's not even that I want that. I just, for what I want out of gaming, like for there to be competitors in the console market space funding extremely high quality games to sell their console, and to have that additional source of funding for these third party developers, publishers, to go be like, hey, we'll make a game exclusively for Xbox if you fund this new fucking Sunset Overdrive styled title that will never get funding elsewhere because it's never going to sell tens of millions of copies and it's going to cost quite a lot to develop, but we can make it as like a marquee launch title for your system and entice people to buy your system, who are then going to go and spend, thousands and thousands of dollars throughout the years of owning your system, and you're going to get 70 fucking, well, I guess 30% cuts of third party deals, and for any other first party juggernaut you put out, you're going to get 100% cuts of that shit. So it's like, we're just in different times, and it's tough for my old man brain to wrap my head around the fact that we are in very, very different times. Very different times. And it all happened so fast. Like, all of this shit just was such an immediate transition where it's like, I feel like I'm on the defensive here playing catch up. Like, wait, things are changing right before my eyes, and I didn't see any of this shit coming. But I guess I should have seen it coming, because it seems like Microsoft was just first, but everybody else is kind of following along. I shouldn't say everybody else. Nintendo is doing Nintendo ass shit, and I think that's probably the world where I see myself in a decade. Maybe I'm just owning a fucking PC and a Switch. Like, that's mind-boggling for me. The two things I like the least. I fucking hate PC gaming, and I don't really have much interest in Nintendo, but if you want to play the fucking Donkey Kong, and the Donkey Kong looks cool, I want to play Mario Kart, that looks cool, you got to pick up the damn Switch too. And if I can play everything else on the PC, I'm just repeating myself at this point, but yeah, wild times. The ROG Ally Xbox X, we got some news on that. This is from Bill Bakun from Dia Labs, who, they're as reliable as it gets. I don't know if I've ever seen them get something wrong, but yeah, it's looking like this bad boy is going to launch around October 16th, and it's rumored to be at $599 for the little guy, and the big guy's sitting around $899 US, rumored prices right now, which that is so crazy to me. That's such a massive difference between the two, almost to like an unbelievable degree. Like, if this wasn't being reported from, Dia Labs, I would not believe this. You're talking about a $300 gap. To me, it would seem like the smart move would be to have one at $599 and then the powerful one be at like $699. But once again, that doesn't benefit Asus in any way. We talked about yesterday the PSP, the new PSP being around like $400 or $500, the PS6 handheld thing, whatever they're going to call it. That's a mass market device. This is not. But that's because it's being made by Asus, who does not make money from software sales. They are not in the business of taking a loss on hardware. And so I guess now the only thing that remains to be seen is the actual like Xbox manufactured handheld. If it ever actually does come out, if they're still committed to the hardware space, like, is that going to launch at a competitive price point? Because they theoretically would be somebody who could take a hit on the price and make it up with software sales. But seeing the direction they're pivoting to with this PC hybrid console PC hybrid thing, I imagine that's going to be pushing $1,000. And so maybe they're not really even looking to be in the business of loss leading anymore, which is such a fucking bummer. Again, but hey, October 16th, the ROG Ally Xbox X. Hit me in the comments. I'm curious your predictions on the sales for this thing. And I'm sure we won't get like completely accurate sales reporting on this, because I don't know if Asus directly reports the sales for their individual devices. I could be wrong on that, but I'm sure Matt Piscatella or Reese Elliott or some of these, some of these people out here who really specialize in finding the details and then getting into the weeds of the sales, and then can kind of speculate and infer based on different metrics. I'm sure they'll have some reporting kind of estimating what this thing sold. I'm curious what you think it will sell, let's say, in a year. So the Steam Deck is around 4 or 5 million total units pushed, and I think this will do better. I do think that $5.99? I think that price point is okay. That's a fine price point. For something that is as powerful as this is, able to play the style of games that this thing can play. I think that's a fine price point. Even for me, looking at that, that's kind of appealing to me. I don't really know if I have a use case scenario that would justify me purchasing that, but $600 for that, yeah, that's not awful. But I don't know. I have a tough time seeing this thing move more than maybe 500,000 units, something to that degree. I just don't know if there's, I've said it before, and I hate to quote myself, what kind of fucking narcissist am I, but there's not a mass market for handheld gaming, there's a mass market for Mario. And that's something I truly, truly believe. I don't think people in general really give a fuck about handheld gaming in a mass appeal sort of scenario. I think people just buy the fucking Nintendo thing so they can play the Mario thing. But we'll see. I'll say around I don't fucking know, 200,000, 100,000, something like that in the first year. Even that seems maybe pushing it, but yeah. Let's continue talking some Xbox, shall we? Jason Schreier says, breaking, Xbox is canceling Contraband. Announced in 2021 from Avalanche Studios. After 4 years of radio silence, sources tell Bloomberg News this news arrives weeks after a mass layoff in which Xbox canceled several other big titles. So Jason Schreier is reporting that Contraband has been canceled, and once again talking about people that don't miss often at all. Jason Schreier is about as bulletproof as you can get, and so yeah, this thing has been canceled. He wouldn't report on it if it hadn't been. I do see that Steven Totillo says here that sources are saying that the game is currently on hold. So I'm assuming maybe they're looking to find a new publisher, but in terms of Xbox's relationship and partnership with Avalanche for this game, Xbox has canceled it. And now if Avalanche, because they've been working on this for a long, long time, 4 or 5 years of development on this thing. That game should be fairly far along, but that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? It's easy to look at this and go, okay, well, we just got that concept trailer, that Nothing Burger trailer. It's easy to look at that and go, okay, well, that's probably, Avalanche, something went wrong. They're not, they specialize in the open world crime sandbox style of thing. Just Cause and Mad Max. And so they do these open world, bombastic games with driving mechanics and shooting and all of that, but then they add multiplayer into it for their Xbox title for Contraband here. And so it's my immediate assumption would be, okay, well, did something go wrong in that department? That's not necessarily their field of expertise. Did something go wrong there? But it's pretty fucking hard at this point to lay the blame at the feet of any of these developers when there is such an obvious culprit around every fucking corner. Let's go through the laundry list. The MMO from the Elder Scrolls Online team was canceled. Everwild was canceled. Forza Motorsport was pretty much fucking killed, and so was half of Turn 10, one of the longest, remaining Xbox first-party studios. Perfect Dark was canceled. The Initiative was something that that was 100% an Xbox, for lack of a better term, initiative to build that studio. Perfect Dark was killed. and so was the entire studio that Xbox built themselves. State of Decay 3 was, supposedly Undead Labs was going through it, and State of Decay 3 was taking too long, and then supposedly that game was in a rough spot. 343 has been in a state of just total disrepair for a while now. There's a lot here. And so before I start laying the blame at the feet of Avalanche, John Romero, they canceled that John Romero game that was supposedly far enough along that they're going out and finding a new publisher and hopefully able to get that off the ground, or I guess it's been off the ground for a while, but hopefully able to get that into people's hands at some point, actually able to launch that game at some point with a different publisher backing it. So it's like, we can go on and on with the absolute just sorry state of Xbox first party and third party relations and shit. So it's hard for me to look at this and just immediately lay the blame on Avalanche. When you're looking at, listen, don't get me wrong, in terms of their publishing output, Xbox as of late, they've kind of been on a hot streak, with Indiana Jones and with your Dooms and with your, like they've had some solid releases as of late. And of course you go into your Call of Duties, like they are a big time publisher, but they bought big time publishers to become a big time publisher. And nothing wrong with that. That's business, baby. You can't fucking get mad. Don't hate the player, hate the game. They played the game and they became a mega publisher, no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean they still haven't made horrible decisions, or at least, even if we don't call them horrible decisions from the standpoint of like a money-making initiative, which I do think a lot of these are horrible decisions from a money-making initiative, it's horrible PR, like front-facing, these decisions look awful on paper. You know what I mean? When you look at just a laundry list of cancellations and studio closures and, things you built up from the ground up just to tear back down, like it looks awful on paper. So it's really hard to hear about Avalanche, a team who has consistently made really high quality games in somewhat of a similar space, more drug running, more multiplayer centric, but still I assume a third person open world destructive sandbox, like that's their wheelhouse. So I don't really see them fucking that up, but they could have. But once again, when I have this laundry list to look at of shitty decisions that you've made that have led to catastrophic results and thousands of job losses, and it's like, it's hard to blame Avalanche for that. It's hard to immediately be like, yeah, well, it's probably Avalanche's fault that this thing fell apart. I just doubt it, Jason Schreier is saying that OD is still in development, though. So, Xbox does not want that black eye. You cancel a Kojima game? The news stories following a canceled Kojima game, Xbox canceling a Kojima game after canceling a Platinum game, after canceling a level 5 game, like, their relations in Japan, in that market, have already been in the fucking gutter for decades at this point. Like, yeah, that I couldn't see that going over too well in terms of just public sentiment. But it's such a bummer that literally just yesterday I was talking about, we were shooting the shit about Mafia, and I was like, I really hope Mafia does well, because I think that in a world where Mafia doesn't do well, the old country, I can see a scenario where that's another canceled, whatever you want to call it, open world crime sandbox game. And Mafia, Saints Row, Mercenaries, Sleeping Dogs, you know what I mean? Like, the list goes on and on. Now we got Just Cause, and now we got Contraband. And it's like, this is one of the only teams who still made games like this. And if that's another one biting the dust, it's like, fucking A. So sad when you get games like Just Cause and Mad Max that are so good. And listen, I don't want to prognosticate. I don't want to predict anything bad to happen to Avalanche, but you know, that's a lot of time working on one game. You know what I mean? I hope that studio can find some funding, I guess is all I'll say. I hope that they can find a publisher for this title, and or at least a publisher. Once again, this is why I made that point earlier about I like having console manufacturers in the market to fund these titles, because they need titles like this to sell consoles. Not necessarily to make tens of millions of dollars off the title specifically, but to make long-term tens of millions of dollars off of people buying into their ecosystem to play these various titles. And when you're not all that focused on selling hardware, you cancel Everwild. You cancel Perfect Dark. You know? You cancel these games that from a publisher standpoint, from a publisher output standpoint, they're not gonna, you're not gonna back the fucking Brinks truck up to the bank for a Perfect Dark or an Everwild. You know what I mean? You're gonna back the Brinks truck up to the bank for a Call of Duty, for a, for a Fallout, for an Elder Scrolls. And so if you're not taking risky bets anymore because you're not really focused on the hardware side of things, and you're more focused on just being a games publisher, then it's like, once again, that's one fewer option for funding for these third-party developers and publishers, which is, such a bummer. I can't imagine, being a developer or a studio head or whatever for an Xbox-owned new IP right now. It's like, holy fucking shit, man. Going to work every day on an unproven project, and you're like, here's hoping this thing that I've been working on for 5 years doesn't get canceled, doesn't get completely scrapped. And in half a decade of my life, doesn't get thrown out the window because the parent company wants to invest $80 billion into fucking AI. That's golly, such a bummer. I wanted to see more on that game. It says this is coming directly from Avalanche. An update on Contraband. Over the past several years, Jesus Christ, over the past several years, Avalanche Studios Group and Xbox Game Studios Publishing have collaborated on Contraband. Active development has now stopped while we evaluate the project's future. We're thankful for the excitement we've seen from the community since we announced, and we'll give an update on what's next as soon as we can. So yeah, another one bites the dust, man. Golly, bummer. Such a fucking bummer. But hey, how about we close the news off with an absolute bummer? I probably should have put a positive story to close off. Mafia got some decent review coverage. The reviews came out and it's sitting around like a 7.5, something in that vein, which, that's decent. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the style of thing that saves the franchise. I hope that people just go out there and support it at that $50 price point, and we can see that remain long term and get more games in the Mafia franchise. But here's hoping, man. That's today in the world of video game news. Not always a positive landscape out there to cover, but I hope y'all enjoyed it. And if you did, leave a like, subscribe, share it with a buddy, all of that stuff. Drop a comment to support, to get it kicking around on the algorithm. And yeah, greatly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I shall see you in the next episode. Goodbye.